Hello! How are you doing? Happy Thursday, everybody. You are with Beth Lee and
Dan IT guy.
We are so happy that you're here, and we have Vic and Foggy here, Diecast Dream Customs. So glad you guys are here. I don't even know what to say.
Yeah.
We're happy that you're here. Really, truly happy that you're here. We have Colleen Tebow. How are you? So happy you're here. This is going to be a good show. It's going to be fun. And we know that a lot of you come in later on and see the show. If you do, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us and taking time out of your day to watch us and listen to us talk, and and any comments that you would like to share with us, feel free to come in on the live show. We always are looking for more people to come in here. And if you haven't done so already, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell. Hopefully we'll be having some kind of cool stuff coming up soon.
Yeah.
I know we're prepping to move, so that's always a journey for us. But we're getting our ducks in a row so we can get going. So, Two Babies here. Hello.
What?
Vic says, I'm happy I'm here too. Glad you got to see me. Yes. For anybody that doesn't know, Vic and Foggy are going through a tough time right now. Please go to his channel, Diecast Dream Customs, and see how you can help after the fire that started in his house. See how you can donate to the GoFundMe that's set up. See what things that you might have laying around that you could donate for the family. I know that they're looking for a lot of electrical equipment, a lot of different items that can be used in repairs. Yeah. So please donate if you can. I know we have things around here, but Arizona's a little too far. If we were heading out there sooner, I know we would be holding on to that stuff and bringing it out to you. But yeah, it's a little far. Turbo Thomas here. Hello.
What's up, bud?
Destroyer Ranch. Howdy,
Brother.
Sir. How are
you?
Yeah, Two Babes says, pack that shit. We have our staging area set up. We broke down the spare bedroom set the other night, last weekend. And so now we have our staging area set. So, yes.
We're getting there.
Yeah. Destroyer says, hope all of y'all are doing good.
Doing well.
Mama San, hello. Oh, my sis. So happy you're here. Two Babes says, hey, Destroyer, I found your channel, sir.
Nice.
Awesome. Destroyer, thank you. Here's the link for the GoFundMe. Thank you so much for putting that up there. And again, if anyone wants to donate for the GoFundMe, if anybody has any items, especially electrical items, you can go on Diecast Dream Customs channel, and you can see a list that he's put up there for items that he's in need of. So please do that. Destroyer Ranch says, followed you back too, babe. Nice. Yes. Yeah, our thoughts and prayers are definitely with you. On Monday, we were sitting here watching your show, and then, a couple hours later, we saw the notifications. So, yes, it's been hectic, I know. But we thought we'd start this show off on kind of a lighter note. I know we're renting a house right now, and I saw a post for rules for renting different places. And I don't know if you're able to see it very well, but I'm going to read it to you.
So you can zoom it in.
Yeah. This says, dear residents, due to the recent actions of a specific tenant, it's not us.
No.
Not us. No. We have been forced to update our community rules. Please find these new rules below. No trash bags placed outside your door. No loud music after 10 p.m. No yodeling at any time. I think actually, Dan, you need to stop doing that.
Well,
I don't know. I'm just saying.
What am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to practice my yodeling?
I don't know. Maybe once we get to Kansas or to Kentucky. I'm sorry, not Kansas. Kentucky, you can do that.
Yes.
Do not feed the squirrels nachos. I know that's prevalent here in Arizona.
Yeah.
We don't have very many squirrels here, though. Do not change the sign for the fitness center so it reads Fatness Center. Do not pull out Yu-Gi-Oh cards and threaten to send residents to the Shadow Realm. Do not climb other people's balconies while drunkenly yelling, "I am Spider-Man." No zip lines. Do not place rent checks in a bear trap outside a rental office. Do not make rent checks out to you greedy motherfuckers. Do not yell at the moon. Do not enter the laundry room center in a luchador mask and attempt to wrestle other residents. No trick-or-treating unless you're a kid and it's Halloween. Do not yell "order up" and throw hot dogs at people as they walk past your window.
What?
I know.
Seriously,
we need to stop doing that.
What are we supposed to do?
There is a whole mess of hot dogs laying in the street out front of our house.
Come on.
It's terrible.
Sometimes you just got to throw a hot dog out in the street. All right. Give me a break.
I thought you were heading somewhere else with that hot dog comment. I'm sorry. Do not attach basketball hoops above residents' doors, knock, and then dunk on them when they answer. Yeah. Moving forward, these failure to abide by these rules will be grounds for eviction. Thank you, management. Yeah. I think we need to actually stop doing some of these things, but Diecast says, "Thank you, Eric. Finally got to talk to the city of Dayton today. Going to be an uphill, but not unbearable." Nice. Good. Yes. We are all so glad to help you, Vic. Yes. And like Destroyer says, you got this. Two-Page says, "No fun at any time." Exactly.
Yeah.
Vic says, "Yodeling is an issue. Damn it, I'm out."
Yes.
The squirrels only want nachos if you can give them Coronas. Exactly. See? Vic says 80% of this was Dan, isn't it? I did come up with the idea of throwing the hot dogs at people, but that was my idea. No fun at all. Might as well be an HOA. Jeez. Right? Oh my God. Destroyer, if the hot dog fits, throw it. You know what they say.
If the hot dog fits, you must have quit.
You know what they say. Oh my God. Okay. Yes, too, babe. That's exactly where I thought Dan was going with that. Throwing hot dogs down the hallway.
I did not say that.
I thought that's where he was going, but he did not go there, which was good. Too, babe. Or Turbo Tom says my daughter is in 420. Dan likes 420 too. I don't know why. It's weird.
Yeah, don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know what you're talking about either. Anyways, so this week, I know you guys have been asking, for like the last year, for me to tell some stories about being a 911 operator. If you don't know, if you're new to the channel and you don't know, I was a 911 operator for several years, many years ago. And I still remember some of the calls vividly. Like I can still hear some of the calls. And so it takes a certain kind of person to do that job. I heard about it from when my brother was an officer. So he had asked me, he said, they're hiring for 911 operators, and I think you'd be really good at it. And he's like pumping me up a lot. And that's not the brother that normally does that. So I'm like, well, what's in it for you? And he goes, well, I get a referral bonus. So, so I'm like, oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense why you're talking to me. But he's like, no, seriously though, I think, you're pretty calm. You're able to handle a lot of different stresses. So I think you'd be good at it. And I'm like, I don't know. We can give it a shot, I guess. Let's see here. Don't ask Juan to front you the sweetest Chiba. How many times do people try to order pizza? It happened. Yeah. I had people calling in on 911 asking for a large pepperoni pizza with some sausage on it. And I told them, do you need police to show up at your house and deliver it for you? Or do you want to just end the call right now? I'll give you a chance right now. Like, do you have an emergency? Let's just put it that way. Actually, there was a short time where they were telling young women that if you need 911 for any reason, call 911 and start ordering a pizza. And so we were told to ask if, there was a set of questions that we were supposed to ask, if they needed assistance from the police or paramedics, if they were being held against their will, anything like that, just so that we could keep them on the line. And so I actually did have a call where someone called in and tried to order a pizza, and you could hear her significant other in the background yelling at her. And so I asked for her location, and we sent officers over there to assist. So don't know what happened after that, but that's the bad part of this job is a lot of times you don't find out what happened afterwards. Like sometimes the officers would come up to our floor, to our center, and they would ask, or they would give us information about what happened once they got out there. But usually it was just to tell us, everything that person said on the phone to you, it was a lie. And I'm like, what? Like everybody tells the truth. Like they're calling for help, And so I realized early on, everybody lies, and you can't trust anybody. I became really cynical after this job. It was not good. Just became very, very cynical. And so that was hard for me to overcome, was getting past that cynical side, and learning to trust people and what they say again, because for a long time I'm like, no, that person's lying. No, I can spot it a mile away. That person's lying. So yeah. But yeah, 911, you have to be able to handle stresses a certain way. And I think I've been writing my autobiography lately. So I've kind of come to realize that when I was a child, I learned how to suppress emotions, and whether that's good or bad, I learned how to shut down emotionally and just deal with whatever we're dealing with. And then I could turn the emotions back on later. And so it's come in handy in different situations in my life. But other times it's like, people will say to me, don't you ever cry? And I'm like, yeah, I cry all the time, but I don't cry in front of anyone. I try not to cry. We just had this conversation a couple weeks ago where Dan's like, he was saying something about, I know you had a hard day with, I think it was the anniversary of my mom's passing.
Yeah.
And, Dan's like, why weren't you crying? I know you were upset that day. And I'm like, I can't cry if somebody else is crying, because I feel like I need to take care of that. So I'll cry by myself, or I'll cry once no one else is, but I can't do it with somebody else crying. I don't know. It's just kind of hardwired into me that I just can't. But so anyways, trying to get hired in was quite the process. It took a year, actually, an entire year to get hired on. So at that point, it was 2002. Yeah, 2002. Oh my God, that was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Holy crap, time flies. Anyway, yeah, Colleen, I hear you. People get mad at me for not showing emotion. Yeah.
I was that way for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I think maybe it's a reaction to quitting smoking, but I've been really, really emotional.
I like seeing it though. I mean, I like seeing the emotion.
It's like I can't stop it sometimes, and it's a little scary, sometimes.
I like seeing the emotional side though, and being able to help you through that. But
I got so used to pushing it down that I guess I pushed it down for too long. I don't know. Yeah. I just know that it's tough. Yeah. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. It's not just my show, dude. Say what you want. But anyways, back then in 2002, you had to actually you actually had to drive to the HR department and pick up the application. And the application wasn't just like a front and back piece of paper. It was a packet of stuff that you had to fill out. They wanted to know every single job that I had ever worked, every single occurrence that I had, like any instance where I had police contact, like even if it was just a warning, like my muffler had fallen off one year and the police gave me a warning about it. I had to list that. You had to explain every single instance. So I think it probably took 2 weeks to fill that out, on and off from, like, I was working full time, at that time. But it was really lengthy. Every single address that I had ever lived at, I had to list that, and it was a lot. The name of my autobiography is On the Move, and it's about the 35 places that I've lived at in my lifetime. So yeah,
crazy.
It's crazy. Foggy cried at the sight of a bird the other day. Oh, I can understand why. I definitely can understand why. I get like that sometimes where, especially right after I quit the job here, like everything I had pushed everything down for so long that it just all kind of like
it just comes out. It comes out.
Kind of exploded.
It's like I said, it's almost like you can't stop it.
Yeah. Kind of like a volcano almost.
Right.
Damn, I'm getting locked up with Juan. Yeah. So yeah, and then once you turn the application in, they check out every single thing. So they call all of your jobs. They look back through their records and see every instance that you've had with police. And then you start your interview process, and it's several interviews that you go through. And they're not just asking where do you see yourself in 5 years. Like, they're not asking those questions. They're asking how would you send out police to a break-in call, and what questions would you ask? And I'm like, I don't even know, because I've never worked in this job before. So I'm like making shit up on the fly, So it was that kind of thing where you're trying to just sound good but sound real at the same time.
Right. You don't want to sound too rehearsed.
Right. And my brother did give me some tips on what to say and what not to say, but it wasn't much help for my job. Right. Not much help. Let's see, Vic says she walked up and asked if he was alive, and I handed his cage to her and said, I regret to inform you that your bird survived. It was a while before she talked to me again. Oh my God, Vic, you're hilarious, Foggy. I'm sorry.
That's so bad. That's so bad, Vic. Come on.
That would have been something I said.
Oh my goodness, I am sorry, but she lived.
See, Foggy's a lot like Dan. I'm a lot like you, Vic. Right? I would have said that same thing.
Oh my goodness.
Seriously, I go through that every 5 years for my clearance. The Juan deal is a joke. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hey, Tim Windsor, how are you? Thank you so much, Tim, for setting up that GoFundMe for Vic. I appreciate that.
Really cool.
That was really awesome of you to do that. So I had to be fingerprinted, and I had already been fingerprinted several times for other jobs that I had where I was working with the disabled. So, that was no problem. I had to go through a psych eval, a psychological exam. And funny story, the day I showed up for the psych eval, I walk in, and everybody in the office is like, they're kind of like running all over the place. And I'm like, what is going on? What happened here? And the receptionist told me, our place was broken into last night. And I'm like, did you guys call the police? And they said, no, we haven't done that yet. And I'm like, so nobody has searched the building? And they're like, oh shit. So we evacuate the building. They call the police and say, nobody's gone through the building yet. And, and then like after the police had left and everything, then the psychologist called me in, and he's like, how did you know to have us call the police? And I'm like, I just thought it was common sense. But I don't know. I would want somebody to check the building before I came in, so I don't know. Tim's saying, how are you doing, Vic? Yeah, Tim, what Beth said. Got to help the family out. Exactly. It's tough, Timmy. I'll get there. Thank you for the support, everyone. We love you, Vic. Love you, Vic. Anything we can do to help out. So I passed the psychological exam, and then I had to do what do you call it? A polygraph test. So just for background information, I have this issue where sometimes I forget to take a breath. And so I'll just be sitting there like watching TV, and all of a sudden I'll take a deep breath. And sometimes it freaks Dan out where he's like, are you okay?
What are you doing?
I'm like, oh, sorry, I forgot to breathe. And So here's that GoFundMe again. Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to leave that up for a little bit. So, and then my grandma used to get mad because I would do the same thing when I was sleeping, where I'd forget to take a breath, and all of a sudden I would take this really deep breath, and it would freak her out. And so I'm sitting there trying to get this polygraph done, and the guy said he had to keep stopping the test because he's like, you have to breathe normally. And I said, this is how I breathe. And he goes, okay, like a normal person does. Like, breathe in, breathe out, and otherwise it's going to mess up the test. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I already knew that they asked one particular question, and I thought it was a joke. I thought, no, they're not going to actually ask that question. But then he asked it, have you ever had sex with an animal? And I started laughing, and I said, well, I was married to a jackass for 1.5 years. Does that count? So he stops the test again, and he said, funny, really funny, but I'm trying to do a polygraph test. You're not helping. And I'm like, I'm sorry. So he's like, okay, you just have to answer yes or no. And so I said, okay, well, that would be a no. He wasn't really a jackass. He was just, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did they hook up the diodes to your head? Did you feel like a science experiment? Yes and yes.
Oh, yeah.
It was crazy. Yes, the ink splotches, I had to do that. It's always a Corvette, just different years. Yeah, I had to do those ink splotches at the psychiatrist exam, and I'm like, well, what's the right answer? I don't know. Like, I would say what I thought it was, and I'm like, is that the right answer? And he goes, every answer you give is the right answer. And I'm like, that's not helping me, because like, I don't like that answer. Yeah, nice. Yeah, he thought it was hilarious, but he's like, the polygraph guy, he's like, no, we can't do that. No more joking around. I'm like, all right, fine. So finally I got hired on, and I had to wait for the next training class to start. So me and another girl, we had to go around to all of the different police departments, the police buildings, and like we had to inventory all the computers and then put new tags on them and everything. So it was actually pretty fun because we learned all the addresses for the different substations, and then we met all these detectives. And like the coolest one, it's really morbid, but the coolest one was one of the homicide detectives asked if we had ever seen a picture of a dead body, and I'm like, no. And he goes, I said, I've performed CPR on a couple of people, and one of them made it, one of them didn't. So I have seen dead people, but and he goes, well, Faces of Death, have you ever seen that? And I'm like, no. And he goes, here, look at these pictures. So he shows me all these pictures, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty crazy. Like, I had never seen anything like that. It was crazy. It was super interesting, but it was a little crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got to go to all the different substations and the detective areas, and so it was pretty neat.
The drug shelters and
yeah. Yeah, we had to go to the evidence room. While I was in training, we had to go to the evidence room, and I swear I had a contact high just from being in there. Like, the smell was overpowering.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
it was so bad in that room. It was horrible. And then the the detective that brought us in there for the walkthrough, he's like, so can anybody name what these drugs are? And I'm like, well, I know that's marijuana. And he's like, yeah. Can you name any of these? And one person in our group was like, that's this. He's like naming all of them. And I'm like, I don't know any of these things. Like, I have no idea. And so the detective was like, all of you, you're good. It's good that you don't know these. You, sir, I've got some questions for you. So, like, how do you know all these? But yeah, it was kind of funny. Whenever I've been given a Rorschach, I've used Steve Buscemi's answer from Armageddon: woman with big boobs, woman with medium boobs, brunette with stockings. I think my answer for all of them was butterfly. I don't know.
I think that's what I said was butterfly. Yeah.
Like, to me, they all look like butterflies, but I don't know. I see dead people, Charlie Murphy. That's so funny. So the training classes began. It was pretty neat. We had so much memorization to do because you have to memorize all the major streets in the city, all of their 100 blocks. There's certain addresses. I think we had to memorize all of the Walmarts in town because there's a lot of calls at Walmarts. All the addresses of the police substations. And at the time we had 4 substations. And then,
did you have to know the banks or no?
No, we didn't have to know the banks, but as time went, as I worked there, I memorized a lot of the bank addresses. Hospitals, we had to memorize hospitals addresses in the city. What else? The 10 codes, like 1010, 1020, whatever. All those 10 codes the police officers use. The calls, the codes for all of the different calls, like a 211 for an armed robbery, a 212 for a strong arm robbery. 918 was my favorite. That was a crazy person. And then we were told specifically that we were no longer allowed to use, like we had a phonetic alphabet, and we were told that we were not allowed to use Adam Henry to describe any person who called in. And I'm like, well, why would you call them an Adam Henry? And they're like, oh, because it means asshole. And I'm like, oh, well, yeah. We just called them 918. So, so it was pretty interesting. 418, subjects disturbing. And it's crazy that even after 15 years, I still remember a lot of those.
Yeah.
187, bitches.
187 on that. I mean,
yeah. And what's interesting is the codes for the city that I worked in are different for other cities in the United States. So not all police codes are the same. I don't think 187 is one that my city used, but I know it's popular, like in California and New York. I think
major cities. Probably.
Yeah. But and then you're going through and learning all these policies, all the procedures, how to take the calls. Because there's a certain script that we have to go through, and I call it a script, but it's not really a script. It's more like certain questions that we have to ask when someone calls in. So if you're calling in with subjects disturbing, then we want to get a description. Like the very first question is going to be, are there any weapons or injuries? That's always going to be the first question. Are there weapons or injuries? What is a description of the person who's disturbing? And, you start out with white, black, or Hispanic, the age of the person, what color clothing they're wearing, and you get more detailed as the questions go through. And then, so you're trying to get the information that the officer's going to see first. Did they leave on foot or in a vehicle? Obviously, if it's on foot, you're going to get a clothing description. If it's a vehicle, the vehicle description. But just whatever the officer's going to see first, and then you can get more detailed as it goes through. But I saw this. Are you alive, sir or ma'am?
It made me chuckle. I was like, dang it, she's trying to talk over here.
An ex-coworker had a coffee mug that said, I tell people where to go and how to get there. She was an ambulance dispatcher.
Yeah, There you go.
Yeah, we had one of my coworkers had something like that. She was a PD dispatcher. So, I think those mugs are pretty awesome. I actually had, I'm not even going to say how the person was related to me, but I actually had someone related to me that said to me at one point, she was mad at me, and she said that I was a glorified secretary, that all I did was answer phones all day. And I'm like, okay, I invite you to come up and sit next to me and while I'm taking calls. And then after that, you can determine whether I'm a glorified secretary or not. So I was a little offended by that. Yeah. I don't get offended by much, but I was a little offended by that because I'm like, we're not just secretaries that are taking messages for the police officers. We're, there's times where I've actually saved lives. So, I don't see many secretaries doing that. But, well, sir, if you're none of those, what are you? An Inuit? Yes. Guess I am too. Then I answer a phone all day as well.
Do you?
You know what? Unless you were hired as a secretary and that's your job title, I don't think you should be called just a glorified secretary.
Yeah, that's not right.
If you're dispatching people for any job, you're a dispatcher. If you're, that's what you're doing. One of the things that was incredible, but it was also a little scary was they played actual calls that our center had taken while we were in training. And a lot of them, it was like when we were going through how to answer an alarm code or an alarm call when, a business would call in because their alarm had gone off. They played an alarm call and whatever. Vehicle accident, they played a vehicle accident call. We listened to that. The worst one for me was listening to a suicide call. And the person, I can't get too detailed, but I mean, the person called in and said, basically, here's my address. Here's my son's name and phone number. Can you tell him I love him? And I've got a gun and I'm going to use it. And here we go. Bang. And that was it. And it was less than 30 seconds of a call. There was absolutely nothing the dispatcher could do to prevent anything like that happening. I mean, when I was working, I took calls where, someone was threatening, but I was able to talk them through and get officers out there to assist with him before he actually did anything. But yeah, just to have somebody come on the line and say, well, here we go. And it's done. It's like, there's nothing you can do. There's absolutely nothing you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, Foggy gets that on occasion. People assume it's easy. Yeah. People assume that, oh, you're just sitting on your ass all day answering the phone. How hard can that be? It's difficult. You came up there on the floor with me.
Oh, yeah.
I invited you up.
You have to know the map like the back of your hand.
Yeah.
You have to know what 100 block. You have to know what north, south, east, west. You have to know everything about the address that the people are trying to give you so that you can get it in as fast as possible, and ensure officer safety at the same time.
Yeah.
So get the description. Is there any weapons?
Yeah.
Watching her do that was amazing. There was a queue while I was there, which was really cool. I was actually working as a computer guy. I was working as a computer guy through the internet. So I was going in and I was fixing 4 or 5 computers at a time. And so I was used to doing that kind of stuff. So seeing her do that, I was like, wow, I know how much work that takes to get that good.
Because
you are good at what you're doing. She would just run right through the people that were in the queue. She knew exactly what to ask, when to ask. It was awesome.
And then drop the call and move on.
Get to the next one.
So we had a queue. The queue is basically a line of calls. So if you've ever worked in a call center, there's usually some kind of a queue, which is waiting calls. So if it was green, normally it was no color at all. So if it was green, that meant that 1 to 5 calls were holding. If it was yellow, it was 5 to 10 calls that were holding. If it was red, that meant that more than 10 calls were holding at one time. And there were different times of the day we would go into the queue. So during rush hour in the morning, rush hour in the afternoon, we would always go into the queue because, you've got vehicle accidents, you've got alarm calls, you've got
people drinking their lunch.
Yeah, subjects disturbing, you've got family fight calls. You've got all different kinds of things going on. So depending on the day and the time, you could be in the queue or not. So it was usually the middle of the night. We didn't go into the queue very often unless there was a big accident or unless maybe a strong storm came through. But other than that,
driver or whatever, yeah.
What?
Like maybe a wrong way driver or something.
Could be, yeah. So we didn't go in the queue very often when you worked overnight. It was usually, I know I'm going to use the word I'm not supposed to. The Q word, quiet. It's usually pretty quiet overnight. But I can use it now because I don't work there. So,
right.
Like if you
if you used it, holy cow!
If you were up on that floor and you used the Q word, oh, it's really quiet right now. People would they wouldn't talk to you for the rest of the night. And then you were shunned for the rest of the night. Like nobody wanted to talk to you. Two Babe says, I have a crew of field techs that I manage and I also fix things. Sometimes I break things.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, the Q kind of became my my special game with myself, that I wanted to see if I could clear that queue as quickly as possible. And, you know, a lot of times it was a vehicle accident or something. We did have a helicopter that crashed in Phoenix. And so we were our center was the backup for Phoenix. We were the backup for Tempe. We were the backup for a lot of different areas around us. And we would dispatch for, you know, our police department and our fire department, and then several fire departments around around our area. And so, yes, please like the live, everybody. Wow, it's just really quiet. Shut up and finish this. Yes. So I'm working one afternoon, and all of a sudden, you know, we're like, it was like a room, or it was an area that was probably as big as this room.
Yeah.
And you'd have in each of the corners of that section, you'd have the computer setups and like the desks. And so, and you're facing away from one another, but in between calls, we're all turned around, we're chit-chatting with each other. It's awesome. And, you know, we're hanging out.
This actually, the way this is set up, kind of reminds me of the system
it kind
that
of,
you had.
yeah, it kind of does. Yeah, it kind of freaks me out every time I sit down here. But
you're like, where's my?
Gives me PTSD. I need a headset. I need my second
headset.
I need my second mouse. Where is it? So yeah, we're chit chatting with each other, and all of a sudden the queue goes from 0 calls to it's in the red. Like immediately goes into the red.
How many is it? Like 50 or 100 or something?
No, it was anything more than 10. So immediately it jumps from no calls at all. Like all of us are sitting there with our computers ready to answer calls. And then all of a sudden it's immediately red. And I'm like, what the hell? Everybody's phones are ringing. It was crazy. So I answer, you know, I pick up my line, and somebody said a helicopter crash. And I'm like, where at? And then she names the streets, and it's in Phoenix. And I'm like, are you at Phoenix? And she goes, yeah, thinking that she got Phoenix Fire or Phoenix PD. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, hang on. So I stand up and I'm waving over my supervisor, and I said, a helicopter just crashed in Phoenix. And she goes, oh my God. So she's on the phone trying to get a hold of Phoenix PD, their dispatch center. And, you know, it's this whole thing. All of Phoenix phones switched over to us. So we're getting all of their calls.
Because they were the overflow.
Because they were like, everybody's calling them, and it was crazy.
Yeah.
Too Babe. Hope everybody has a great week. Take care. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for stopping in, dude.
Yeah. Having when she goes into the computer room. Yes. So it's, you know, we end up trying to get as much information of other calls that are coming in for Phoenix as we could, and just calling over to them and giving them the information. It was crazy. That was a crazy time. Yeah, damn phone. I said Beth starts having flashbacks when she goes into the computer room. Yes, I do. It's crazy. I feel like I have to get to work. Let's go. Actually, every time that there's a monsoon that comes in, or a strong storm, or anytime we have a full moon, I'm like, damn, I wish I was working tonight, because I loved full moons. They were my favorite time to work, because you had all these crazy people that would call in, and it was like, you know, people calling in and they're like, a cat is chasing me. Can you send somebody out to get the cat? And I'm like, what? Or my favorite pet peeve was when people would call in and they're like, yeah, I need police to come here. And I'm like, where are you at? I'm right here. What address are you at? Right here. okay, can you give me some numbers and words? Because I don't know where here is. I'm not standing there next to you.
What are your cross streets?
Yeah, I kind of need you to tell me where you are. Yeah. So after classroom training was done, we went out onto the dispatch floor. So we sat with the trainers for 6 weeks. So the first 2 weeks, all we did was listen in while they took calls. And then we started taking calls. And I still remember taking that first call that came in, and it was an alarm call. I totally messed it up. I didn't ask any of the questions I was supposed to ask. And I get done with the call. The trainer had to step in and finish the call for me because I wasn't answering it correctly. And so she's like, "Are you a little nervous?" And I'm like, "Yeah," because I didn't know what kind of call was going to come in. And I kind of got freaked out. And she goes, "Well, now you've taken your first call. Now you don't have to be scared again. So you're good." One-eyed cat, how are you? So glad you popped in.
What's up, Don?
We're talking 911. Yeah, so I did okay during training, like with the trainers. I actually had an extra time put on me for training because I wasn't, like, for some reason my brain would not compute that I had to ask these questions in a certain order. So I wasn't doing that. And then it finally clicked with me with my last trainer. She was amazing. And she's like, "You have to ask these questions in a certain order because the lives of your brother and other officers, as well as the public, it all depends on how you ask these questions. So you need to remember these questions to ask." And so I ended up taking my big binder home with all the policies and procedures. I don't know what is going on. That's so weird.
Go to present. Wow.
Present.
Wow.
Okay. Honey, I don't know what you're talking. Okay. Can you guys hear us?
Sorry, guys. Give us a sec here. There you go.
Hopefully they can see us now. Can you see us? Are you back? Are we back? Hopefully. You back? Yay! I don't know what's going on. It's so weird. I don't know what happened.
Sorry, guys. Just give me 1 second here.
It's I don't know what's going on with, like, that happened last week. I'm not sure what's going on. It's weird. Thank you. That was a cool screwsaver. Thank you. That's destroyers.
All right, there we go.
Yes. So so anyways, yeah, I ended up taking that binder home and just making sure that I knew, like, I studied and studied and studied because I wanted to make sure that I knew how to ask those questions. And yeah, came back and I was ready. I was ready. So yeah, it's weird. Like, you have to ask these questions. And I when I started training, I said the same thing to the people that I was training, that, you know, the officers' lives depend on knowing whether they have to know whether there's a weapon involved. So that needs to be your first question. They need to know that. It could be the difference between an officer getting hurt or somebody in the public getting hurt. So they need to know these questions. Vic says, "Ugly puppy says hello."
Aww.
Foggy's on a break. I like your puppy. She's so cute.
She is cute.
She's adorable.
Why is it not?
I don't know why it's not showing that. It's weird. But anyways, yeah, so I finally finished training, I was able to go out on my own. And you're on probation for basically the first year that you're working there. So like that first year that I worked there, I was working the graveyard shift. I would start at 2300, which was 11 o'clock at night, and I would be done at 0900, which is 9 o'clock the next morning. So I'm working overnight. I had never worked overnight at another job. So there were a couple of times where I'm like, I feel like I'm going to fall asleep. So I learned to get up and clean in between calls so I didn't fall asleep. But the supervisors, there were some supervisors that were amazing. My friend Russo, my friend Chris, they were just amazing, incredible supervisors. Like I loved working for them. They were so supportive. And then, you know, if there was a bad call that you were on, they would take you downstairs and walk around the parking lot with you and help you get rid of all that adrenaline that you had. And they were just amazing. Some supervisors I'm not going to name. I won't do it. But they weren't so great. You know, and so some of them could be really harsh. I remember the first supervisor that I had coming out of training, and she actually became a friend of mine later on. But every single night there was something that I had forgotten, or something I had entered wrong, or something I said that was wrong on the call. And every single night I was pulled in the office for a year, every single night. And, you know, after some time of getting your ass chewed every single time you work, you get a little down about your job, you know? And so like at the end of that year, I remember she called me in her office. She said, well, congratulations, you're off probation. And I'm like, well, thank you. And she goes, so did you enjoy this last year? And I said, no, I hated it. And she goes, good. It's my job to weed out the people that don't belong in this job and who aren't going to make it. And congratulations, because you made it. And I felt like crying. I wasn't going to cry in front of her, but I felt like crying because I'm like, all that time that, you know, all those times where I sat there thinking, I suck at this job. I'm so bad. I can't remember anything. And, you know, and she said, you made it through and you pushed yourself to learn how to do this job and you're pretty good at it. So keep it up. And she became a friend of mine after that. But it was like, it was so hard that first year, just trying to remember every single thing. And then thinking, like getting off of a call and thinking, oh, I did that right. I answered that call, everything. I asked everything the right way. And then I'd still get called into her office because I had forgotten to do something. I had forgotten to, or I'd coded the call the wrong way or something, you know, there's always some little thing that I wasn't doing. Yeah. Kudos to you. Thank you. Yeah. Hey, Mopars.
Hey, what's up?
So you're the un-DEI operative.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. Yeah. So I've got a photo here of how the pods are set up. This is just kind of a random photo that I found, but so you can see like most of the 911 centers, they keep them pretty dim because you want to focus on what you're doing. So you can see there's another one back here. There's other pods. A pod is basically where you have, you know, usually 2 to 4 setups. And, you know, it's like you've got usually your backs to one another, but you've got another person there that you can turn around and say, hey, what's that call? What's that code? Or, you know, you can ask questions or whatever. But yeah, looks like my gaming setup. What games you playing? The game we're playing is Cops.
Yep. Police Quest.
Yes, Police Quest. That's what we're playing. And then this is like one of the centers. So you can see there's 4 computer screens. So you'll have a map on one of them. And the center that I worked at was pretty cool because they had little police cars and little fire trucks, little ambulances and you could see the little helicopter. And so you could see where they were at. Yeah. And so you could tell, like, we would be able to tell callers, you know, they're a few blocks from your house. They'll be there shortly. So, and then you've got your enter screen where you're entering all the information. You've got a phone screen that tells you, you know, the phone number, the carrier that comes in, the longitude, latitude of the person. Back when I was working back in 2003, we actually had landlines that people would call from. So we would have the landline the landline phone number that would come in attached to the address. So it was a lot easier back then. And then we've got another screen that has like the medical information that we can pull up. So it was a lot. And then, so you've got the 4 screens, you've got usually 2 keyboards and 2 sets of mice that you're working with. Your headset plugs in.
And they call me Dan IT guy.
Yeah, it was interesting. Cops and Robbers was great to play as a kid. Yeah, it sure was. I loved playing it. How often did calls come in on an 8-hour shift? So depending on what city you're working at, we worked at, I worked at a center that was really busy. So we would take probably in a 24-hour span. At that time, it was probably around 1,200 calls. And that was for like the whole day, like 1,200 calls, 1,200 to 1,500 calls, depending on the time of year or what was going on. It was a lot. It was a lot during that time. Control-Alt-Delete. The IT guy's like, damn that job. Yeah. He was pretty impressed when he came up. And,
that was a rough job.
Yeah, he saw the setup and he's like, holy crap. But like, depending on what shift you worked at, like I said, the overnight shift, we didn't get nearly as many calls as they got during the day. You know, the morning shift, because they have staggered shifts that go throughout the day, but like every couple hours someone is coming in. But like the daytime shift, it could be busy, like especially during rush hour times. My favorite shift to work was swing shift. So from like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, like 1,300 to 2,300, that time, 1 o'clock to 11 o'clock at night, that was my favorite time to work because it was busy the whole time. So you've got rush hour, and then you've got people arriving home from work and getting in a fight with their spouse. You've got medical calls going on. You've got everything. You've got vehicle accidents. I mean, it's
when everything happens.
Yeah. And then you've got businesses that are closing for the evening at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night. And so then you've got alarm calls coming in right after that. So I loved it. Alt F4, I'm out. A lot of times on the overnight shift, we would get the tow guys, the tow truck drivers would call in. And I always thought it was kind of funny because like the tow truck drivers, they'd be calling in like, you know, they had just picked up a vehicle. So it's a repossession or they found it in a parking lot, doesn't belong there. So they're towing the vehicle. So they've got to call into the police department on the non-emergency number and then give the VIN number, the description of the vehicle, all that stuff. So the one guy that would call in all the time, like he would always call and he'd be snacking. He'd be eating while he was giving me the information. And so we have to repeat back all the information, like the VIN number, we have to rattle it off to him. And he thought he was going to be a smart ass one night and just zip through this VIN number. And you have to say it phonetically. Like all the letters are phonetic when you're given it. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I can actually say it faster, but yeah, that's fine. So I rattled it off faster back to him. Then he gave it to me and he's like, oh, I didn't catch that. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Do I need to slow down for you? So, and then he was like, I don't know what he was eating, you know, whatever chips or crackers or what, I don't know what he was eating, but he's like, it's like, I've got an earpiece in my ear so I can hear it like right in my ear.
It's like he's chomping in your ear.
Yeah, like directly into my ear.
She freaking hates that.
I hate that to begin with, but then he's doing it like right in my ear. And I'm like, are you eating something? And he goes, yeah, I'm having lunch. And I said, well, do you want to call me back when you finish, or do you want to just put aside your snack while you're calling? Because I can't understand you with the food in your mouth. So I got called into the office for that one. I get called in the office for a lot. Foggy said she can't hear this on her break. She went back in with her mutant dog. Oh, Foggy.
Poor Foggy.
Yeah, so I got called into the office a lot because I said that to him. We had we had a monsoon storm that came through, and some guy, he calls 911 to ask if it's Armageddon. And I said, well, I didn't get my message from God yet, so I don't know. And so I got called in the office for that. So it got to the point with some of my supervisors where I'm like, all right, here's my wrist. Go ahead and slap it so I can go back to the floor and answer calls. But yeah, I still remember the first bad call that I got. I was like 6 months out of training. It was a drowning call. So I answer the line. The line, I pick up on the line, and it's all I hear is screaming. And it was a 3-year-old that had drowned. So I'm giving out CPR instructions and getting police and medics on the way out to the house. And so after the call was done, I finished up the call, and my supervisor, one of my good friends, she's standing there right on the other side of the little wall where I was working. And she said, how are you doing? That was your first bad call, huh? And I said, yeah, that was a bad one. And she goes, so do you need to go take a break? And I said, no, I'm fine. I'm good. I'll be fine. And she goes, okay. So I went ready. I take the next call that comes in on 911, and it's this guy bitching at me because his neighbor's dog won't stop barking. And I said, sir, you're calling 911 about a barking dog. And he goes, yeah, this dog won't stop barking. I need you to send police out to shoot it. And I'm like, well, that's not happening, number one. And number two, are you inside your house? And he goes, yeah. And I said, okay, well, stay inside your house. The dog can't get you. And here's the non-emergency line if you want to call back and see if animal control can come out. But I'm not taking this call on 911. So he proceeds to call me a whole bunch of names in the book, and whatever. I can't even tell you how many times I got yelled at by the public and called names. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. But you
got to figure not most, I would say probably 30 to 50%, depending on the day, are people that are actually in an emergency.
Right.
And it's the worst day of their life.
Yeah. And it's the worst day of their life, and they're calling, and you give them grace, and you try and help them through the situation they're going through.
Yeah.
Some of the other people they're calling because they want to bitch at you for something.
Yeah.
So you get really used to telling people, thank you, have a nice day. And trying to give them the non-emergency number. And so I finally just kind of exploded on this guy because I had just gotten off that drowning call. And I said, I'm not taking your call on 911. If you want animal control to come out, call the animal control number. And I hung up on him. So my supervisor was still standing there, and she said, so you still think you're okay after that call? And I said, I think I need to go downstairs and take a break. And she goes, I'll go with you. So she went downstairs with me, and that's how I learned that after a big call like that, you have this rush of adrenaline that you have to get rid of, and you have to walk outside, and you have to do like 5 or 10 laps around the parking lot because it's hard. It's hard to get rid of. You have to get rid of that adrenaline. You have to let it go. We had family fight calls. We had vehicles that were stolen, but people are calling on their worst day, it's hard. Holy fudge, that's deep. I'm glad I'm a first aid certified at my job. Yes. Yeah. Yes. And I would say, like, when you're calling, like, I was telling the kids that we raised, make sure, like, there's some tips that I can give you. So here's some free tips from a former 911 operator. Write down your address and post it on your refrigerator. Even if you don't have kids in your house, even if it's just you and your wife, write down your address, post it on your refrigerator door. Because in an emergency situation, your mind isn't working clearly. Right. So make sure that you're putting
when you're in panic mode.
Yes. You don't know which address you're going to remember. So put that address somewhere where you can see it in an emergency. Answer the questions they're asking you. They're asking you for a reason.
Yeah.
They're asking those questions for a reason because they need to know that information. They need to pass that information on to the officers. They're not asking you that because they want to get to know you. You know, this isn't a dating site. So they're not trying to get to know you. They're asking because they're trying to get information to pass on to the officers or to pass on to the medics. So, you know, just try and understand that. Mopar says, so the Karens that call? Yeah, exactly. The ratio is like 99.9
to 1.
to 1. Sometimes, yep.
Some days, yeah.
My mom always said, if there isn't death or bleeding,
hang up now.
Hang up now. Yes. Yeah. I actually, like, we didn't get written up very often. I was called into the office because there was an argument at a gas station one day. And so I take the call, and this woman is complaining because she thought they were being racist by not allowing her to use her card there, whatever the situation was. I don't remember now. So I said, well, this is more of a civil issue. It's not really a police issue. Are there any weapons or injuries? And she's like, well, no. And I said, so it is like, are people arguing, like really getting into a heated discussion about this, or is this just a complaint? Because we don't take complaints for businesses. That's not what we do. We're not the Better Business Bureau. So, yeah. So she was insisting that a police officer come out. So I'm like, okay. So I'm trying to get her information because she's the one calling, and I want the officers to go and talk to her. She hangs up on me. So I call her back. She doesn't want to talk to me. She hangs up on me again. So I call the business because I know the address of the business. She's at a gas station. So I call the business and I said, hey, is there a woman causing problems outside? And they're like, yeah. And I said, can you give me a description of her and her vehicle, please? So they give me that information. And officers come out. They take care of the situation. There's nothing they can do. Not their job, whatever. So a little while later, I called into my supervisor's office, and she goes, yeah, did you take a call where you sent somebody to a gas station? And I said, yeah. And she goes, yeah, the woman complained about you. And I'm like, why? Well, because you sent police out there. And I said, she asked for police. Well, they came out there and they were looking for her. And I said, because she was complaining. So they need to talk to her. Well, she was upset because she thought you were being rude to her. Maybe I was. I don't know. Maybe I was. Perhaps my tone of voice wasn't as sweet as sugar, because she was being kind of a bitch. But whatever, it's fine. So we listened to the call again, and then she said, well, she wanted to make sure that I knew that she was a dispatcher for another city. And I said, wait a second, she is a police dispatcher for another city, and so she doesn't understand the rules of this. And so I just flew off the handle. I was so mad. I'm like, are you kidding me? My supervisor ended up calling her supervisor, and she got in trouble. So yeah. I'm like, I don't want this mark against my name, that's ridiculous. So anyways, but yeah, terrible. We did have some funny calls that came in. I had developed a really morbid sense of humor from this job. We had a street sweeper that was stolen early in the morning before my shift started. So I come on later in the morning, and they're saying, oh yeah, like this street sweeper was stolen earlier. Keep your eye out for any calls about it. And I'm like, all right. So then a little while later, I get all of us start getting that. We go into the queue. Everybody starts getting calls because somebody is they're dangling off of one of the overpasses and threatening to let go onto the freeway. And so we handle the queue. We get all done with that, and the firefighters show up. They pull him back up. He's safe, completely unharmed. Everything's good. He's being taken into the hospital for evaluation. He's good. And I said, it's too bad we haven't found that street sweeper, because that could have come in handy. And my coworkers were like, oh my God. Just saying.
Hey,
Just saying. Street sweeper stolen 2 hours ago. Can you still see it? Right? Those things are like how.
You're so slow. You're like 10 miles an hour max.
Lived here for 29 years. I can remember. Yep. Yes. So it's like crazy things like that. We had a huge monsoon that happened one year, and I was one of the few that could get into work. So I get in there, and there's 3 of us, 3 911 operators. There's supposed to be 7 on duty. There's 3 of us. There's 3 dispatchers. There's supposed to be 6. There's 3 fire dispatchers. There's supposed to be 4. We have our supervisor. There's supposed to be 2 supervisors. We only got 1. So we've got like half the staff that we normally have, and we're answering calls. We were in the queue nonstop red for 4.5, almost 5 hours.
Ooh.
And in that time period, we took, I want to say we took 1,600 calls in 4 hours between 3 of us, because all the other dispatchers are busy doing like dispatching the calls out. The operators are the ones taking the calls. So we're taking all these calls. We take 1,600 calls within, I want to say it was about 4 hours of time. It was insane. And then we finally, like, the storm had subsided, and we had a lot of flooding throughout the area. So people weren't able to get in to work. So we had some people that finally made it in, and they were relieving us one at a time. And so, because we couldn't get up from our chair. So you're sitting there for 4 hours, not getting up. There's no bathroom breaks. There's no lunch breaks. There's nothing. You're sitting there. I guess. What, they couldn't swim? I mean, when I came in, it looked like I was in a wet t-shirt contest when I got up to the floor, because I was drenched when I walked in. But I'm like, oh, well, made it in. Let's go. And, you get in, you turn you plug in. I didn't even have time to sit down. I got in there, pulled my headset out of my bag, plugged it in, and that was it. Like, went full board. There we go. So, yeah, there's positive thinking, right? Yeah, that was a crazy thing. And then, a few weeks later, we ended up, they had this little ceremony for us, and they ended up giving us commendations for that, because it was such a crazy day. It was incredible. The other time that I got a commendation was I had an 18-year-old that called, and she was whispering on the phone when I answered the phone. And, I was always like, what's going on? Like, if somebody called in, they were whispering, it was like that. It perked up my ears right away.
Yeah. Cause you're like, what? Somebody's whispering for a reason.
Why can't she talk?
Yeah.
So she's whispering, and I find out that she is home alone, and 3 guys have broken into her house. They don't know she's there. So she's hiding in the bathroom. And so I get her address, and I'm telling her, don't talk unless you have to. And so I'm listening, and I can hear them walking through the house and breaking things, moving things around. I can hear them opening and closing doors throughout the house as they're walking through. So my adrenaline is like, oh, inside I'm like, oh my God, you can't let that go. You can't let that show in your voice at all. So I'm trying to keep her nice and calm so that they don't discover her. And I'm telling her, I'm trying to get her location in the house so that when officers get there, they know where she's at. So, are you on the west side of the house, the south side of the house? Where's the bathroom at in the house? And, do you know these people? I'm trying to get any information that I possibly can. And then I see on my map that police are there. They're surrounding the house. And I said, police are there. Don't come out from where you're at. You stay right where you are. The police will come and get you. So you just stay where you're at. The subjects had run outside and police got them right away, put them in custody, and then they came in. So the next thing I hear is police pounding on the bathroom door. And I said, that's the police officer. You can come out. And so she was fine. But I was sitting next to the fire dispatcher or the fire chief. And I didn't realize that she was even the fire chief. And so she looked over and she goes, wait a second. Were you taking that call just now with that young girl? And I said, yeah. And she goes, I thought you were talking to a friend of yours or something. I had no idea you were even on working right now. And I said, yeah, I'm on duty right now. Yeah. And she goes, you stayed on the phone that was a 20-minute phone call. You stayed on the phone with her for 20 minutes and talking like that calmly. And I said, yeah, I kind of have to, I mean,
somebody's got to be the person in charge.
I can't freak out. And she goes, I don't know how you did that. She was the one who turned my name in for a commendation. And she's like, I could not believe that you were sitting right next to me. And I had no idea you were on that serious of a call.
It's crazy.
It was a little weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was the types of calls that we took. It was interesting. Very interesting.
Hennepin County 911, what's the address of your emergency?
Yep, I remember saying that a lot. I would say that in my sleep.
Yeah.
It was crazy. I would say that in my sleep. I did have another thing that was pretty interesting happen. We had the newspaper came in and they wanted to do a story because at the time our center was using volunteers to help translate calls. So we would have Spanish speakers calling in, and we had an interpreter service that we would use. So because I don't speak Spanish, and there's
a lot of Spanish speakers out here.
And so we would ask
Arizona.
We would try and figure out what language they spoke so that we could get the interpreter on the phone and then they could translate for us. So we started having volunteers come in and they would translate for us, and they would sit with us and translate. So we had the newspaper come in and do an article. And so I'm telling them, you can't come in between calls. Yes, you can come back here and you can see our setup and what's on the screen and everything. But if I get a call, you're going to have to move to the other side and just, and not look at the screen at all because of, confidentiality. So, so while I'm talking to them, I get a phone call and it's an armed robbery call while I'm talking to the newspaper. So he starts, and it's a Spanish speaker. He starts interpreting. And so that's us taking the call, actually taking the armed robbery call.
Did you have the same glasses back then?
Could be. Probably not the same lenses, but yeah. Probably.
Wow.
But yeah, he was an amazing translator. He was so nice. And he actually ended up becoming a police officer himself a couple of years later. And that was amazing. Because he was such a good guy. But yeah, it was pretty neat. My mom she's like, oh my God, you're in the newspaper. That's so amazing. ¿De dónde eres? Where are you? Is that what that means? I have no idea. I don't know. Just taking a guess there. But I think one of the saddest things I ever had to listen to was we had an officer who passed away on duty. And so when an officer passes away on duty, they have what's called end of watch. So it's we'll have a ceremony that we do, usually at the funeral. Where are you from? Close enough, Trace. Thank you. So they usually do the end of watch ceremony at the funeral. So I only had one that I heard while I was working. And it's brutal to hear it.
It's brutal.
It's brutal to hear the whole thing because, like the dispatcher that's doing it basically has something written out so that she doesn't forget what to say. But they're calling out their call sign and the name of the detective or the officer, and they call it out 3 or 4 times, and then and they do the hot tone at the beginning of it, and then they do the calling, and then basically they say, thank you for your service, and we wish you rest in peace and that kind of thing. It's hard to listen to, but I remember the day that we had one when I was working, and everyone in the center, we were told, just go not ready on your computer and don't take a call. Unless we go into the red on the queue, don't take a call. Because they're like 30 to 50 seconds long. They're not very long. And most of us stood up, and it was emotional. It was very emotional. We stand up out of respect. You're part of, once you start working here, you become part of the Blue family, and you remain part of the Blue family forever. And that's something that, like, I still have friends that are part of that Blue family, and I'm very supportive of
friends and family, really.
Yeah, I'm very supportive of my Blue family and that thin blue line. And in fact, when we came out here to visit last year, we stopped at one of my friend's houses.
Yeah.
Hung out with her for a little bit, and just that family never goes away. Yeah, I remember my dad's service. Yeah, it's crazy. I've heard about retiring an officer, man or dog. It's got to be hard.
Really hard.
It's hard. Here's a snippet of one.
Last call for deputy.
Yeah. When you hear that last call, that's hard. It's very hard. I mean, I've seen some from around the country that you can look them up on like Last Call or End of Watch. You can look them up on YouTube and you can listen to them. They're hard. They're hard to listen to, but it's worth it. It definitely is worth it. Just to be able to hear the respect and the honor that's given to those officers that put their life on the line,
Yep.
I ended up quitting the job shortly after my mom died. I think it was about 3 months after my mom died.
Yeah.
Because we were helping out with the kids at that point, and
We had a lot going on.
a lot going on. And my dad had asked if I would stay home and help more with the kids, because he's like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I said, I get it. Turbo Tom, he said, my dad was captain of the Tiffin Police Department. Wow.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I appreciate your dad's service.
Thank you for his service, for sure.
But yeah, I remember I was working, and I said to Dan, this job is getting too emotionally taxing on me. And he said, just hold out. And I kept saying, I want to ask my dad if I can just stay home with the kids, because, I think he needs that. I don't think he has a clue how hard this is going to be.
Yeah.
Wendy, how are you?
Hey, Wendy.
And Dan said to me, just wait. We've been praying for the Lord to give us a sign of whether or not to for you to quit your job. And I said, all right. And I said, it really needs to be my dad's decision anyway. It needs to be his idea, And so sure enough, it was about a week after that conversation with Dan, and my dad said, can we have dinner? And he asked me if I would stay home with the kids. And I said, yep, I'll turn my notice in tomorrow. And he's like, don't you need to talk to Dan about this? And I said, we've been praying for the Lord to give us a sign, and this is the sign. So we're on the same wavelength here. It's good. I watched a video today retiring a drug sniffing dog. They had him search one more bag and dropped 100 tennis balls when he marked the bag. Oh, that's so awesome. That's amazing. I love that.
It's heartwarming. Yes.
But yeah, I ended up, I had taken a call. One of the last calls that I took was, it was a difficulty breathing call. Easy peasy. You're starting medics and getting the address, and then you're telling, you're giving the medical instructions for difficulty breathing. Not a hard call. I had gotten the age of the person. She was a female who was the same age as my mom. And I asked, do you know what's causing the difficulty breathing? And he said, yeah, she just went through cancer treatments. She has cancer. It was the same cancer my mom had. And my mom had gone to the hospital for difficulty breathing the last time she went to the hospital. So it was too close to home. And I got done with that call, and I went into my friend, it was a supervisor at the time, and I said, I need to go outside. I can't. It's too close to home. It's the same call, same as my mom. I was on duty the day that my mom was in a hit and run crash, and my mom survived, obviously, but it was crazy. I took the call. I entered the call for the crash, the vehicle accident that my mom was in, and ended up leaving work once I found out it was my mom. Yeah. I'm like, Red Durango. I wonder what mom's doing right now.
What'd you say the license plate was?
Wait. And it was a couple blocks away from the kids' school. And she had picked up the kids from school. She was leaving, and she got rear-ended, pushed through an intersection and into a parking lot. And it was crazy. I went up to my supervisor, and I'm like, I gotta go. That Red Durango is my mom. I gotta go. So, I was escorted. Once, kind of a cool thing that I had was, you're carrying your ID badge. And so I flashed my badge all the way down, and it's showing I'm a 911 operator. So all these police officers and the firefighters are like, hey, how are you doing? And I'm like, I'll talk later. My mom's up there in the Red Durango. Can I go? What's going on here? So, you're getting a little bit of extra information just because that's who you're, because you're your family, they're like, oh, let me escort you up here, Did it have a bumper sticker that said, Tracy's my daughter? No, but the funny thing is my sister-in-law called, and she called the non-emergency line, and she goes, yeah, can I speak to Tracy, please? And I'm like, this is she. And she's like, your mom was in an accident over at school. And I'm like, I'm going to have to call you back. You're on. And she's just chit-chatting on the phone. I'm like, you're on a recorded line. I got to go. I'll call you back in 2 minutes. Oh, okay. Jesus. I don't want to get in trouble here for chit-chatting on the phone. It's a recorded line. Yeah, if you call 911 or even the non-emergency line, you're calling on a recorded line. So just be aware of that. Everything is recorded. Everything you say is recorded on there. I have had to go to court for various calls, and, that was interesting. But, yeah, so that's kind of a little snippet of my time in 911. I don't want to have it go too long. I know we're over our hour already, but I wanted to give you guys the message of hope for this week. So Pope John Paul II, he was Pope for a long time. He was an amazing man. One of the things that he had said was, I plead with you, never, ever give up on hope. Never doubt, never tire, and never become discouraged. Be not afraid. And Tessa agrees. So he's in the Catholic Church. He's a saint now. But actually, the funny thing about this quote is this quote, I had saved it on my computer January 2nd or 3rd, something like that. This quote is why I started doing the messages of hope at the end of every show. It's because of this quote here. Because I wanted to just leave everyone with some kind of a message of hope, because I think it's important. It's important to spread hope to one another, no matter what situation you're in. I know that there's times where, Dan and I have started recently just writing little, I don't know if you'd call them love notes or little notes to each other. I'll write one to him at night before I go to bed and leave it sitting on his computer. And then he writes one and leaves it by the coffee pot for me in the next morning.
Yeah.
And so it's just a little way for us to, just tell each other to keep going, or, just express how we feel, just to say I love you and have a good day, just something sweet. So this is my little note of something sweet for you. Just want to be able to share something positive at the end of every show.
Yeah.
When you stop believing, hope fades away. So don't stop believing.
There you go. Simple.
In the words of Journey.
Don't stop believing.
But anyway, we love you guys so much. Again, I'm going to try and see if I can find it here. I want to put that thing back up real quick. Here we go.
Yeah.
Here's the GoFundMe for Vic. So once again, if anybody has anything extra laying around that you think Vic might be able to use, the GoFundMe is here. If you go to Diecast Dream Customs on YouTube and look at his channel, he's got lists for things that he needs right now. Please go there and check him out. And help out if you can.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for. We're a community. We're here to help one another out.
Yep.
So,
we love you guys.
If you can't help out, spread the word to people that you think could. Maybe even screenshot this and see if you can put it up on other people's websites, or or on their pages, or on their YouTube pages or whatever, and just share this information out, because we really want to help them out as much as we can.
For sure.
Vic says Foggy would be writing everything on napkins with magic marker. Yes, see? I'll see what I can do. Love you, Vic. Amen. Yes, God love you. We love you guys so much.
Love you guys.
And we can't wait for next week. We love hanging out with you guys every single week. So that's it. We love you. We'll see you next time.
See you guys.